An old guy was shocked to find the driver, who was supposed to take his boss out soon, sneaking a drink downstairs. With the boss ready to leave, he felt he had to step in and confront the driver. The driver, caught red-handed, tried to make excuses, but the boss was on his way over, and there was no time for a back and forth. The old guy sternly warned the driver, who then claimed he wasn't feeling well and asked the boss for a day off. Naturally, the old guy took over driving duties, and the boss had to juggle work and her mom's constant nagging during the short ride. Once they arrived, Annie told the old guy the meeting would take about an hour, and if it felt too long, she could just grab a cab back. After the meeting, Annie came out looking unhappy. Clearly things hadn't gone well. The old guy didn't pry. He just mentioned there was soup in the back seat. He had heard everything she said in the car, but noted she hadn't eaten. On the way back, Annie was still working, and the old guy kept quiet, just driving smoothly. That night, he got a call from Annie's assistant, who couldn't reach the driver, so she asked the old guy to drive another day. The next morning, he rang Annie's doorbell right on time, and when he was about to wait in the car, Annie's husband opened the door. The husband warmly invited him in, and the old guy happily accepted, instantly winning over Annie's daughter with his friendly demeanor. He liked the little girl too, and introduced himself as an intern, but that made Annie a bit uncomfortable since she valued her privacy. Sensing her awkwardness, the old guy apologized for his earlier behavior on the way to the factory. Annie reassured him while also telling HR to move him to another position because she felt he was too perceptive and had figured her out in just a few days, which made her uneasy. The old guy was oblivious, only seeing how dedicated Annie was to her work. She would teach workers how to package, paying attention to every detail, which is why she built a company of 220 people in just a year. Her meticulous attitude reminded the old guy of his younger self. That day, Annie worked late, and the old guy quietly kept her company. Noticing this, Annie brought food and drinks to thank him, and their conversation turned out to be surprisingly enjoyable. Out of curiosity, Annie asked about his previous job, and seeing his expression, she suddenly realized something. As they talked about his past, it was clear he had been through a lot. Annie was genuinely interested, listening intently as he shared the history of the building, her smile growing wider. Suddenly, she noticed he was trying to set up a Facebook account, but was struggling. She eagerly jumped in to help, gradually filling in his personal info based on what he told her. During this process, they discovered many similarities, which made them feel closer. On the way home, Annie fell asleep for the first time in the car. Hearing her snore, the old guy didn't disturb her, just patiently waited. His calmness made Annie feel incredibly comfortable as she started to accept this elderly intern in her life. The next morning, Annie was excited to get in the car, only to find a different intern driving. This new driver couldn't tell directions and almost crashed into another car, forcing Annie to play navigator. It hit her then that she had felt so at ease before because the old guy had quietly taken care of everything. Once they got to the office, Annie rushed to find the old guy, but he had been moved to another department to help a colleague buy coffee. Annie sincerely hoped he could forgive her and come back to work with her. After returning to the office, she decided to promote him, instructing her team to move his desk to the office entrance, making him her first assistant. But this seemingly simple move became the last straw for her secretary, who couldn't understand why her hard-fought position could be replaced so easily. The old guy, being older, understood the secretary's feelings and gently comforted the upset young woman. His words seemed to have a calming effect, and her emotions gradually settled down. For a while, the company was running at full speed. Annie started feeling overwhelmed with all the chaos, and she couldn't help but complain about the samples lying around. But the next day, she woke up to find her messy desk completely clean. She looked at her partner, who said it wasn't him. That's just how the old guy was. He always took care of the details that others overlooked. It was a habit formed from years of hard work and his attitude toward his job. Using his extensive sales experience, he quickly identified issues in the company's marketing. After analyzing the data, he laid out the problems for Annie, who openly admired him and even introduced him to her partner, mentioning he had 40 years of sales experience. The old guy didn't take all the credit. He mentioned the secretary and reminded Annie she had a business degree. Annie got the hint and said she would talk to the secretary separately. The next morning on the way to work, Annie was swamped, and her mom kept pushing her to come home. In her frustration, she accidentally sent an email meant for her husband complaining about her mom to her mom instead. By the time she realized it, she was already at the office. Annie quickly called a meeting, asking the tech team to hack into her mom's email because her mom had a heart condition, and if she saw that email, she might end up in the hospital. But the tech team said that was impossible. That's when the old guy suggested a plan. Sneak into her house before her mom got home and delete the email. After getting Annie's approval, he and a colleague set off while Annie assisted remotely over the phone. But when they got the spare key and opened the door, the alarm went off. The old guy quickly informed Annie, but she brushed it off. Everyone started searching for the computer, and after some effort, they found two. The old guy asked Annie what color her mom's computer was. With the secretary's help, they finally located the right one. But by then, the alarm was blaring, and they all started to panic, except for the old guy, who remained calm. He told his colleague to delete the email, and then they all rushed outside. With only 20 seconds until the police arrived, the colleague outside was having a personal karaoke session in the car, completely unaware that everyone inside was in a frenzy. If you enjoyed this wild ride, don't forget to subscribe for more adventures.